Mandy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you here. Okay, so Mandy, I really want to start at the beginning, like kind of set the scene for us. Take us back to the start. Tell us a little bit about what life was like even before you were diagnosed with cancer. What were you up to? What were you doing? And then what led to your ultimate diagnosis?
Well, it was a rainy day in April of 2017, and I had a routine mammogram scheduled because my doctor said, "Hey, you know what? It's a good idea. Why don't you just go and get a baseline?" And I remember waking up and saying, "It's freezing cold. I don't want to go. Oh, I'm too young. I'm too young. I don't need to go and get this mammogram." And something in my head just sort of clicked, and I went. And sure enough, they found my triple negative breast cancer. And, prior to the diagnosis, I think, the fittest I had ever been in my life. I was 44 years old with no family history. And I felt like my whole world exploded in 10 seconds, and very overwhelming to say the least. But I'm very happy to say that I am now a 5-year survivor.
Wow, wow. Okay. So you're 44, your doc's just kind of like, oh, we should start doing routine mammograms here, sends you off. So you never, no lump, no symptoms, nothing.
Nothing at all. In fact, I was living my best life. I was super busy. I was spinning every day. I was eating, a mostly plant-based diet. I really thought that I was checking every single box that I needed to live this long, healthy life. And, sure enough, there was a small tumor that I could not feel, that had been in my breast. So
Wow.
thank goodness that mammogram found it.
Wow. Okay. So triple negative. So you get diagnosed triple negative. What does your treatment path look like for you?
So it was it all happened very quickly, and I knew nothing. I am now a subject matter expert, but at the time
Yeah.
I knew very little, and
Yeah.
neither did my husband. So we were kind of thrown into this treatment world very, very quickly. And because of triple negative, my team wanted to start, treatment almost immediately. So I started neoadjuvant chemotherapy within 2 weeks of diagnosis. I received my port the day before my first chemo infusion. So that alone was so sore and
Yeah.
scary and overwhelming.
Yeah.
My chemotherapy regimen was 4 doses of adriamycin every 2 weeks. And then I did 12 weeks of weekly Taxol with carboplatin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, I opted to have a bilateral mastectomy
Okay.
with reconstruction.
Okay. Wow. So from start to finish, like you go from your diagnosis, like 2017, I'm guessing is your diagnosis. Okay. And then to the end of your reconstruction. Like when was your last reconstruction surgery?
So my final reconstruction surgery was in February of 2018. I did,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Although, you know, that yes, I checked all those boxes and I was done,
Yeah.
but I'm not done. I still
Yeah.
feel very, very involved in my active recovery.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us more about that. Like, because you're in a unique spot. And I remember when I first met you, you were like, hey, look, I'm 5 years out from my diagnosis here. Um, which is obviously a long time to be in this cancer space. So what was it in your recovery that was holding you back?
So I felt like I finished treatment and off I went into the world. And with triple negative, there's no long-term treatment plan. There's no pills that you take for 10 years. So all of a sudden felt like I was cured, quote unquote cured, and off into the big bad world I went.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like I had any support. And believe it or not, Dr. Amy, like year after year went by and I just started to gain a little bit of weight and I wasn't really keeping up with my exercise and I didn't know if I was eating the right things or not. And because I was gaining weight, clearly maybe I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a place or a space to go to find out these answers. And then, I'm a big Instagram gal and scrolling through with all of my other friends who've been through this journey, I start seeing your face pop up and listening to your quotes and your sort of motivational ideas.
Yeah.
And that's when I reached out to you. I was like, I think this is exactly what I need
Yeah.
5 years out.
Yeah. I always say that really my job here now, like, and really what I do feel is like my calling to this cancer community and even to being in this world is to really help like high achieving women who have been diagnosed with cancer get back to being high achieving women. Cause like it's almost like we've set the cancer recovery bar so low. Like if you're able to get dressed, go to the bathroom, like it's like what?
Go for a walk, right?
Like it's like that's not what my life looked like before cancer. My life looked like this beautiful mess that was busy all the time. And so to not feel like yourself for 5 years, like that's a long time.
It is indeed a long time. And, I did try to get as busy as I could and everything,
Uh-huh.
but there was like something was missing.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I hadn't found my people, right? Or my
Yeah.
community with like-minded people.
Yeah.
So it's been actually really life-changing. So I have you to thank for that.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited because I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of cool about cancer recovery. Like there are silver linings,
Yeah.
and you do get to meet, other survivors into your own journey
No
and
doubt.
share.
Yeah. That's so true. Like the people that have the women, I should say, the women that have crossed my path because I was diagnosed is completely different than what it would have been. And they're amazing. They're like these really amazing people. So,
Yeah.
Mandy, you said something about how the weight was just creeping up. And that
Yep.
was really the main reason I believe why you reached out to me is because you were struggling with your weight. So tell us more about what that was like and where you were at before, like when you reached out to me.
So I was not prepared at all for chemo-induced menopause. Nobody told me anything about that. They just said, it might happen. You might get your period back. And then I never did get it back. And just like that, I started to have hot flashes. And this is all happening while I'm dealing with cancer treatment and ultimate recovery and mastectomy. And I felt very alone. And I had none of my girlfriends who were my age were going through anything like this. So I just sort of dealt with it quietly
Yeah.
until, my clothes didn't fit anymore. My old clothes didn't fit anymore. And I wanted to make a change, but I didn't know how to start.
Yeah.
And I noticed, on a lot of your Instagram posts, it was that you did address, that sort of medically induced menopause, which
Yeah.
happens fast. It's like boom, you hit a wall, and then the weight just kept up, and I didn't know how to start. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
get active.
Yeah, I mean, the similarities between yours and my story, like we were diagnosed with completely different types of cancer, but I was the same. Like I didn't have any long-term hormonal suppression, but the fact that I had had this treatment was so insulting to my body that I had gone menopausal.
Yeah.
Um, and it's almost like your body changes overnight. It's like the drop in hormones, it's just like how your body looks is different.
It's completely different, and how things fit is completely different. And like you're already in this weird unknown place, to then not really even feel comfortable in your own skin was really catching up with me after
Yeah.
5 years. And I knew
Yeah.
if I didn't take a step to make changes, that the next 5 years to get to 10 weren't going to be joyful.
No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what we did as part of helping you lose weight, supporting your recovery further, even at the 5 year mark. Let's talk about like what made the biggest difference for you.
Well, specifically, with your plan, I have really, really responded well to sort of the 3 buckets and your
Yeah.
macros.
Yeah.
That breaks it down, in such an easy way for me that I can do that when I'm out to dinner at a restaurant. I can do it when I'm at a friend's house for dinner, and it's it's almost like I had to train my mind to think that way. And now I do, and it's easy.
Yeah. Which is amazing, right? Like when we tie back into helping high achieving women getting back to themselves, I mean, that's it. You travel, you go
Yep.
out for supper, you enjoy like restaurants and foodie experiences. Like, and if you have a plan that doesn't allow you to do that, then you're still missing out on parts of your life because you can't do that piece.
Right. Which, and it is a big part of like getting back to your life is doing all of those things.
Yeah.
And specifically traveling, we like to cruise, and,
Ah,
cruise ships, there's a lot of amazing food on board. And now I know how to eat when I travel,
okay.
which is great. Not only have I lost the weight, my skin is sort of like, dare I say, radiant. Like I feel just
Ah,
more dewy. I just feel
yeah.
better. I just feel
Ooh.
better.
Yeah, I like that. Wow, like when we talk about someone being the picture of health, right? Like people throw that term out there often. Like that really looks like you now.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
yeah.
You're making me emotional. That's so nice to hear.
When you say like radiant skin, dewy skin, yeah, that's part of it, right? Um,
Totally.
like feeling comfortable in your body, like you can move about the way you want, like that's it, right? Like that's what we're looking for. I mean, a lot of us say like it's a number on the scale, right? I want to lose 20 pounds, whatever, but it's more than that, right?
It's absolutely more than that. And I still have a little bit to go on the scale, but now I know that I'm seeing progress. I'm actually kind of jazzed about it. I'm like, this is a piece of cake. I'm going to be
Yeah.
able to do this. I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and health, it is a holistic thing. It is how you feel, it's how you perceive yourself when you look in the mirror. But it's even like my posture, after some of these
Exactly.
very, very invasive surgeries, I was kind of starting to slump over a little. I was a sloucher, sort of protecting my chest area. And, even my husband is like, your posture looks better. You're standing up really straight and tall. And it's like, I have a pride. I have pride.
Yeah, like, you took the words right out of my mouth, actually. That's exactly what I was trying to say, but I didn't know how to say it, and you just nailed it because it is, like, how you carry yourself too. And you know what we don't often talk about is, yeah, it starts with this idea of weight loss or, dropping the weight that you gained during treatment, but look at everything we just touched on here. Like, your skin, your posture, you're carrying yourself differently. How about your confidence and how that relates to your work, to your relationships? Like it just
Everything. It
exactly.
touches on everything. And well, it may have started with, oh gosh, I wish I could still wear those jeans. This whole thing is so much bigger than, the smaller pair of pants. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you mentioned oh well, first of all, let's talk about how much weight you lost because you said you've lost some weight. How much weight have you lost over the span of us working together?
Okay, so I weighed in yesterday morning, so I have almost an exact number for you.
Mm,
So I have lost just over 10 pounds.
wow.
And I have a little side note with that. Keeping in mind that right before Christmas, I unfortunately had the virus that's going around, and I was quite sick for a couple of weeks. So I had 2 weeks where I wasn't actively doing anything. I was just sitting in bed, eating soup. So I feel really good about that number, even though I had a hiccup with my health.
Yeah, and then you didn't really dwell on the whole piece that it was Christmas too, and you've lost
Christmas.
10 pounds.
So I sort of I kind of like manifest you
Ooh.
and said to myself, I can enjoy Christmas. I'm still going to eat all of my family's yummies that we do every year, but I must be active every single day.
Mm.
Even if it's for 10 minutes, because 10 minutes is better than nothing. And I stuck to that, even when I didn't feel like it, even when, I just forced myself to do it. And it was so great to come home after Christmas and feel good about myself instead of like, oh gosh, I just gorged myself for for the last week.
That's such, oh gosh, I love that because you know what that really said, Mandy? It was it's more about what you're adding in and not really about what you're taking away. It's not about,
Absolutely.
it's not like don't have the apple pie, the pumpkin pie, the whatever dessert you have at Christmas. Like it's not about not having that. Have it if you like it and enjoy it. But it's about adding things back in that are going to strategically help you recover and get to the goals you want.
And we have to talk about my energy level
Mm.
because I feel so much more balanced in my day. I used to sort of crash around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and think, is my cappuccino going to be iced or hot? That was sort of my afternoon decision. And now I don't even need that cappuccino in the afternoon. My energy level is constant. I get good sleep. I try to get 8 hours every night. And when I don't do the exercise in the morning, I make sure I'm doing it in the afternoon. It's just totally working for me.
Yeah. And it's all that energy being more consistent throughout the day. That's really related to your food and how we're fueling you. Like if we can change how you're eating, that's going to make such a big difference to that energy, which then again improves like every aspect of your
Okay.
life. Yeah.
And I remember on our very first touch base when
Yeah.
I was just getting used to the macros and
Yeah.
how am I eating, you were like more protein, more protein, more protein. And I know it's specific to everybody,
Yeah.
but I did, I kept adding more protein, and that was really something I had not been doing. I didn't know. So I could have eaten all the green salad in the
Yeah.
world, and I was still going to crash at 3 and need the cappuccino because I wasn't getting enough protein.
Yeah, which I was just on a rant about salads today, actually, because salads can either make or break you, and we all think that they're so healthy. And then you look at any salad from any fast food chain, and it's just total garbage. And like you might as well have had the double cheeseburger because they just load them with a bunch of sneaky stuff, and it's just not good, but you think you're doing the right thing.
Right. Somewhere along the line, we were all sort of trained, right? Salad is good, but yeah, I totally agree with you. And if you start to actually, which I now do almost without thinking about,
Yeah.
looking at the ingredients,
Yeah.
like what's in everything I'm eating,
Mhm.
wow, some of it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it really is, and it's like being a student really of what you're putting in your body, because the more you learn about what you're eating, the better decisions you can make. And so again, it's not about like eliminating things, it's really just about learning and then making more strategic decisions.
Yeah, and you also gave me a wonderful piece of advice right before the holidays, which was
Mm.
like kind of choose where you're going to, if you're going to sneak a little treat, or you're
Mhm.
going to eat the chocolates or whatever, do it, but just you can't do it every day. So
Mhm.
you kind of were like pre-plan when you might want to bake that in, no
Yeah.
pun intended with bake it into the holidays. And I did think about that. I was like, okay, well, Christmas Eve is traditionally, a heavy meal in my family. So I like kind of planned for that so that when all of that food was on the table in front of me, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to enjoy it,
Mm,
but I was also going to get up there and exercise too.
nice. I
Yeah.
love that.
You've
Yeah.
really given me tools. It's like
Ah.
my toolbox is full.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Okay. But what we didn't chat about here yet is and cancer recovery, and you alluded to this too, but like our family, our spouse, our husband, our partner, they play a big role in our recovery as well. And I know your husband did. I've actually never seen his face, but I've heard him talk a couple of times now. But tell us more about like what was that like, navigating all of this with your husband. He's obviously aware, like 5 years later, you're still not quite yourself. Tell us what like that relationship has been like, and how that's kind of evolved over time.
Evolve it has, it's such an interesting thing. I said the day I got diagnosed, I remember holding his hand and weeping, and he looked at me and he said, it's not, you didn't just get diagnosed with cancer. He's like, we did.
Mm-hmm.
And that we is very much a part of treatment and now my forever. So he's very involved in my thought process, but there's still days when I'm like, oh, but he just doesn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because he hasn't had chemo, and he hasn't had side effects from chemo. And that I'm grateful that he hasn't
Yeah.
had chemo and
Yeah.
hopefully never will. So he's my best friend through this. But again, I still had felt like I hadn't found my people,
Yeah.
my friends, like
Yeah.
who'd gone through exactly the same thing as me. And he's super supportive. And I know, Doctor, you heard him in the background when the last time we were on the phone, and he's like, yeah, cheering me on. Having a cheerleader
Yeah.
makes all the difference.
Yeah. And at no fault of his own, he's not a woman. So he doesn't get it. And
Nope.
and bless their hearts, but I'm just, feminist at the core, but he just doesn't truly understand what it's like to have these hormonal changes happen to you at such a drastic pace.
Drastic pace. Yeah. Almost like it's like I equate it with like hitting a brick wall. It was like
Yeah.
you're living your life one way and then boom, totally smack.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Mandy, when you finish treatment, your weight's creeping up, energy's poor, skin's dry, like rough almost. Now you're at the point where you're down just over 10 pounds, like feeling like you have control over your food, over your choices that you're making, skin's better, energy's better. What's the plan for the future? Like, what are the future goals? What do you see for yourself moving forward now?
Well, I want to stick with this plan forever, right? This is like a forever plan. This isn't
Yeah.
just something I'm doing to lose 10 pounds. I feel like that's what we did when we were younger, when, you had to fit into a prom dress.
Yeah.
Now this is for life. And this is ultimately for my health and to make sure I stay cancer-free, for forever. And I feel like it's an investment in myself, which it feels really good. It feels really good to treat myself that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, that's really,
More travel, of course, more food, more all of the good things to come.
yeah. And like you have the energy to do it now too.
I have the energy to do it. And the cherry on the top of the cake is that, those skinny jeans that I was talking about, I can wear them now.
Ah, amazing. Amazing. Okay. So I mean, you touched on something there that's interesting. A lot of women say, like, probably you came to me because you wanted to lose weight, but like it seems like your goal, like your real, like the why behind what you're doing here has shifted even over the span of, gosh, I don't know. You've worked with me for probably 10 weeks now, I'd say.
Yeah, I was going to say 2.5 months. Yeah, so 10
Okay.
weeks. Yep.
Okay. So it seems like even over that span, like the driving force behind what you're doing here has shifted. Maybe it started as weight loss, but now it's something bigger than that.
It's bigger, it's deeper. And now it's like in me. I think over the years, pre-cancer, during cancer, post-cancer, I felt frustrated about starting with the weight. Nothing really worked.
Yeah.
So I'd take a pound off or I'd take 2 pounds off. And I don't want to make this all about the weight, but that is where this started.
Yeah.
But now it's working and the weight's coming up, but I feel so much better. It just makes sense. It's almost like, why wasn't I doing this all along?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just can't even believe it. It's not a hard program to follow. It's not, I'm adding things. I'm not taking away.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, like, and to have lost over 10 pounds and like basically to go from a point where you're having a hard time losing more than a pound before you add it back on to a place where you like have comfortably lost 10 pounds and feel good while you've done it. That's pretty remarkable.
It feels really remarkable. And I guess let's talk again in 2 months or 3 months, but maybe right before the spring. And
Yeah.
maybe there'll be 5 more pounds. I think 50 is would be an awesome number.
Yeah.
And I'm 100% certain I will get there.
Yeah. Right.
That's new for me.
That feeling is amazing because it's not so much as like cross your fingers and hope this works. It's like, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm just taking the steps towards it. It's not if I get there, it's when. And that's all there is to it. It's almost like it takes the mystery out of it entirely.
Absolutely. And when you actually start doing the weigh-ins and you see that number creeping down, I'm not on a treadmill for 5 hours a day. I'm not starving myself. I'm not eating lettuce
Yeah.
leaves. It's not that at all. I feel better, and I love managing my day this way. It just
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So, Mandy, you've been incredibly generous sharing your insights, your stories, your struggles, your successes here. But I have one last question for you. I'm curious, if you were to think back to where you finished your treatment, you're done that last surgery, if you were to think back to that place and you came across a woman that's in a very similar position to you, like all day long, I'm speaking with triple negative thrivers as well, diagnosed too young, diagnosed when they didn't expect it. What's like the one piece of advice you'd give to a woman who's like in that position?
Ooh, I could talk for hours about that. One piece of advice. So newly diagnosed,
Yeah.
that no matter how low that, and I'm going to say they are going to take you, and that's chemotherapy, that's
Yeah.
a low, however low that you can possibly be or feel, just know that not long from now, you're going to put it completely behind you.
Mm,
And it gets smaller and smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror.
wow. Yeah. Another triple negative thriver that I actually had on the podcast as well, she described it very similarly. She said, like pretty soon this is all just going to be a really distant bad dream.
Yep.
And
And
it's,
and there are moments where when I do look back, it's like
yeah,
it's kind of murky. That year of treatment is murky. I think the chemo had probably had something to do with it,
yeah,
but I think also that the brain knows what to let go of.
yeah. It's like trying to protect you, right? That's like all very trauma driven, but yeah, just trying to protect yourself. But that's like that's really wise insight because when you're in it, it feels like it's going to drag on forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Mm,
And getting involved with you and your program where I had voids, I
mm.
have now filled with positive, real planning, day-to-day planning that's working. So there's not even any voids anymore.
Amazing. Feels
Yeah,
good to have a plan, a roadmap,
absolutely.
yeah, some direction, right?
Direction, totally.
Yeah. Well, Mandy, thank you so much for sharing your story here with us.
Well, thank you for having me.